Hey friends, welcome back to the Procrastination Solution Podcast, where we get real about what's holding you back and how to move forward with purpose, clarity, and a solid plan for success. I am your host, Nilo, and I help women just like yourself overcome procrastination for good and achieve your goals. We are in the month of October. This month is all about facing the fear. And in this episode, I want to show you how fear hides inside procrastination, and what psychology says about it, and how to start rewiring and changing your relationship with fear so you can move forward. And so grab your coffee, take a deep breath, and let's talk about the psychology of fear and procrastination. And I'm also so excited to talk to you and share with you teachings from Brené Brown, Susan Jeffers, and Carol Dweck in this episode. They are, some of my many teachers when it comes to mind management and life coaching. So I'm excited. Let's dive in. First, let's talk about the hidden link between fear and procrastination. And, I've said this before, procrastination is about self-protection. When we procrastinate, our nervous system is trying to keep us safe. It's trying to keep us safe from criticism, safe from making a mistake, safe from feeling uncomfortable emotions, right? And psychologists call this an avoidance coping response. The brain perceives certain tasks like sending an email that might be difficult to send, applying for a promotion, or having a hard conversation as threats to our safety or self-worth. So it releases stress hormones and tells us, let's not do that right now. Right? It's not logical, but it's emotional protection. And as Brené Brown says, vulnerability is the core of shame and fear and our struggle for worthiness, but it's also the birthplace of joy, of creativity, of belonging, and of love. So when we procrastinate, right, when the fear of being vulnerable, of being seen or possibly failing feels too heavy. So the mind says, let's just wait, right? And I don't know about you, but I know that I can relate to this on so many levels, right? And waiting rarely helps. When we procrastinate, we're basically waiting on something. We think that if we wait for a different time, a different situation, a different circumstance, that we're not going to feel these, uncomfortable emotions or we're not going to think these negative thoughts. But waiting rarely helps. It only deepens the fear and strengthens that habit, right? The habit of procrastination. Now, the fear that hides in procrastination, one of the sneakiest forms of procrastination is perfectionism. We tell ourselves we're not ready yet. We need more time. We need more clarity, more energy, more research. But underneath all of that is fear. And Susan Jeffers, author of Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, she says, the fear will never go away as long as you continue to grow. And that is so powerful. It is so simply and beautifully said. The fear will never go away. We are constantly growing. Our goal is to constantly grow and shift and move and improve ourselves, right? But that whole time, fear is going to be present. We have to do it in the presence of fear, right? So that quote really changed how I think about fear, because it tells us fear doesn't disappear when you become successful, when you become organized or confident. It just evolves you along the way, right? So every time you do something new, like you start a business or you have a baby or you leave a job or, start a health journey, fear shows up and says, are you sure? Are you sure you want to do this, right? But Susan Jeffers also says every time you encounter something that forces you to handle it, right, your self-esteem is raised considerably. You learn to trust that you will survive no matter what happens, right? You are following through on something in the face of fear, so you're building that muscle up, right? And that's what happens when you move forward. Not the absence of fear, but the trust that you can handle fear. So the next time you catch yourself saying, I'll do it later, you can pause and ask yourself, what am I protecting myself from right this minute? Why am I saying I'll do it later? Is it fear of failure? Is it fear of judgment? And this could be judgment from other people, fear of judgment of other people and ourselves. Like, we are our worst critics many times. Is it fear of not being enough? Do you think you're not enough in this moment? Right? So naming the fear starts to tame it, right? The episode before this is titled Name the Fear to Tame the Fear, right? So the mindset behind fear, let's talk about what Carol Dweck says. And she's a psychologist, and she developed the concept of fixed versus growth mindset. So in a fixed mindset, we believe our abilities are static, right? We think, I'm not good at that. I'll never be consistent. That's just not my thing. But in a growth mindset, we believe we can learn and improve through effort, through strategy, and through support. And Carol Dweck says, one little word that changes everything, right? And that word is yet. I haven't done it yet. I don't know how to do this yet. Adding yet tells your brain that the door to growth is still open. Fear loses its power when you believe you can change. And you can believe a little bit at a time. If your belief is not so strong in the beginning, even if it's a little, even if it's tiny, that will get you started, right? So Carol Dweck's research shows that people who cultivate a growth mindset are less likely to procrastinate because they view mistakes as information, not as evidence that they have failed, or that they're failures, or that they're gonna fail in the future, like forever and ever and ever, right? They view their mistakes as information. I love that so much. So instead of thinking, if I fail, I'll feel terrible, right? Think, if I fail, I'll learn something valuable. That's how you transform fear into momentum. You move from avoidance to adaptation. You move from avoidance to moving forward and creating this momentum, right? To get the ball rolling. And fear as a compass, right? Let's talk about fear showing you the path and not being your enemy. Fear as a compass and not as a cage. And, Brene Brown is one of my favorites. One of my, favorite quotes from her is this: our willingness to own and engage with our vulnerability determines the depth of our courage. When we are facing, or when we are getting ready to face fear, we are in a very vulnerable place. It's a very tender moment for us, right? And in fact, just today, I was feeling really vulnerable after an incident. And I believe it's Brene Brown that calls it the vulnerability hangover. So I was experiencing this vulnerability hangover. Like, lots of thoughts, lots of like fearful thoughts were in my head replaying over and over again. Lots of, things like I should have done this, or I shouldn't have done that, or what if they think this about me, or what if they, do this or do that. There was just a lot of this chatter in my head, a lot of this noise, and I was in a very vulnerable and tender place, and all of this negativity was doing a number on me, right? I could feel like sometimes we literally feel this pain in our chest, like this, like tenderness, like somebody is hitting us where it hurts the most. And I had to really stop and acknowledge that it was a vulnerability hangover, that it was this, these like thoughts that were replaying in my head, and I had to stop and address them, and I had to do some deep breathing and put my hand on my chest and just really sit there, be with myself, and accompany myself through this experience, because it was painful, right? And in the past, I would have dealt with that pain differently. Maybe I would have gotten upset, or I would have gotten, like hungry and, gone to eat something that I wasn't really hungry for, but it's, food has been something that I've used in the past as comfort, or, just a number of things to make myself feel better, as opposed to just actually sitting with the pain and addressing the pain and sitting with myself and accompanying myself. Because over the years, I've learned to not only enjoy my company when I am happy and, just like content by myself, but also to like not run away from my own fear, not run away from my own pain and escape it, and actually like learn to be with myself, right? And all of this I have been able to do with the help of coaching, with the help of all of these, brilliant folks like Brene Brown and Carol Dweck and so many others. So our willingness to own and engage with our vulnerability determines the depth of our courage. Courage is not the absence of fear, right? Courage is moving forward, doing something when you are shaking in your boots, when you're literally shaking and you're still moving forward and doing something because you know that it's worthwhile, because you know that it is the process, that this is the path you walk through. And one thing that I found myself telling myself today while I was processing my emotional pain was, this is temporary. This is temporary. This is not going to last forever. Because when we feel pain, oftentimes we're so like immersed in it that we think it's forever, that this pain is going to kill us, right? And so I had to just sit there and remind myself, this is temporary. I can feel this. I can be with myself. I can accompany myself through this experience. And I can also remind myself this is temporary, right? So this is one of my favorite quotes by Brene Brown. So in other words, courage doesn't happen in the absence of fear. Like I said, it happens in the presence of fear, right? Fear isn't a stop sign. It's a signal. It's a message that you're about to step into something meaningful. Fear is like a compass. It's like an arrow pointing towards something. It's trying to teach us something. At first, it's like maybe big and scary, and we want to avoid it and walk the other direction, but it's something that that if we stop and slow down and pay attention to, we'll see that it's pointing to something that we might want to address and change and work towards a little bit at a time, right? Slowly. So if you weren't scared, it wouldn't matter. That means your fear can become your compass, right? If something scares you, like launching your business or writing your book and starting a YouTube channel or speaking up for yourself to coworkers and your, boss or your family members or your spouse or a friend, it's possibly a sign that it matters deeply to your growth, right? So think about that, marinate on that, and see what comes up for you, right? So rather than running away from it, you can say, okay, fear, I see you. You are welcome to come along for the ride, but you are not driving the car. I am in control, right? I am in control. And that is courage. That is courage in motion, right? So how to start rewiring your fear responses? Let's make this a little bit more practical here. So here are a few steps to start changing how you respond to fear. First, name it. Again, last podcast episode was about this. Name it, say it out loud. I am afraid I will fail. I am afraid I'll waste time. I am afraid I'll waste money. I am afraid people will judge me. Whatever it is that you're fearing, say it out loud, right? Naming the fear engages your rational brain and reduces the emotional reactivity, right? So it helps you think about it a little bit more objectively, or start to think about it a little bit more objectively. And number 2, it's important to move your body. Fear is physiological. A short walk, slow breathing or stretch can discharge stress hormones and calm your nervous system. I had to do that today. And I was sitting on the couch, with my legs crossed, and I was deep breathing, and I was stretching my neck, stretching, my back. And with each little movement, I felt better, a little bit, while I was doing like this mental, exercise with myself, like, calming myself and putting my hand on my chest and all of that. But moving your body, breathing slowly, breathing in, holding your breath, and then breathing out very slowly. That is so important, right? And number 3 is to reframe your failure, right? Reframe this failure, this thing that happened. Ask yourself, what could I learn from this instead of what could go wrong, right? Let's just say you fail at this thing. What could you learn from it, right? Instead of thinking what could go wrong. This trains your brain to associate risk with curiosity and not with danger. And it's funny because I say it's funny because our brains are just so, curious that way, that we think like something small happening triggers this big fearful emotion, and then something big happening triggers the same big fearful emotion, right? Like, a car accident, for example. That's big, that is scary, that is dangerous, I get it. But also like, I don't know about you, but like answering the door when I'm not expecting anybody, I'm like, I'm not answering that. Right? Or like sending an email that might be difficult. Or like having a conversation or standing up for yourself. That it like triggers the same sort of fear response, right? So if you ask yourself, what could I learn from this experience of speaking up for myself? And, instead of what could go wrong, right? If you're thinking, if I speak up for myself, what can I learn from this? Instead of these people will hate me forever. I will not have a relationship with them ever again. Like, so reframing that will help you move forward with courage and choose your words so that you can speak up for yourself in a way that, you are moving forward. And yes, you are afraid, but you're using courage as your fuel, right? And it's not fear that's holding you back from this, right? And another one is a really good one is to take micro actions. Do something, anything that moves you closer to your goal. And because momentum moving forward, it will weaken the control that fear has over us, right? It weakens it because we gather evidence in favor of courage, right? But if we're frozen in fear, then that's where we are. We don't move forward. We're just frozen still, right? So take micro actions. And then 5, celebrate courage, right? Fear wants perfection, but courage, celebrates action. So celebrate courage, celebrate yourself, be proud of yourself, say it out loud, write it down, that you are proud of this little step that you took forward. And I know that I have to pat myself on the back. There are times where I have done that, and there's nobody around for me to brag about myself to. Normally it's my husband. But I have pat myself on the back. I'm like, good job. You did great. Just that little, action, and then move on, move forward. And it feels so good to receive that from yourself, right? So each time you face fear, with intention, you build trust with yourself. That's how procrastination also will lose power, right? Or loses power over us. So if you're listening right now and you're thinking, I want to stop letting, fear decide how I spend, my time, my life, then I encourage you to start small. You don't have to erase fear. You will never do that, right? It's always going to be with you. You just have to meet it. You just have to think about it differently. And as Susan Jeffers said, feel the fear and do it anyway, right? And as Brene Brown says, vulnerability is the birthplace of courage. And as Carol Dweck says, you haven't done it yet. I love that. You haven't done it yet. So you are growing, you are learning, and leading yourself with courage every single day. And I am proud of you for being here. And I cannot wait to hear about, what you're taking away from this episode. If you care to share with me, I am on Instagram at Nilo Burke Coaching. Please come on there, share with me, let me know what you took away, and I would love to connect with you. So I wish you a wonderful day, a wonderful week, and I will talk to you later. Bye.